من أرضى الناس بسخط الله سخط الله عليه وأسخط عليه الناس ومن أرضى الله بسخط الناس رضي الله عنه وأرضى عليه الناس. Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Whoever seeks the pleasure of Allah at the risk, there was a risk, they should have took that risk, seeks the pleasure of Allah at the risk of displeasing people, Allah will be pleased with a promise. Does Allah fulfill His promises? Allah will be pleased with him and will make people pleased with him. Promise from Allah. Listen, and this is exactly what happened here, the second part of the hadith. But whoever seeks the pleasure of people at the risk of displeasing Allah, Allah will abandon him, will be displeased at him, and will make the people abandon him and be displeased at him. Sunan Tirmidhi. The benefit, all the benefit, is living under the shade of the legislation of the one who knows best what suits us. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. The fitna, all the fitna, is living under man-made laws in countries that were founded on La ilaha illallah. You hear the rags who call themselves shuyukh encouraging Muslims to accept secular states. Does a Muslim, let alone a sheikh, even talk like that? Since when do Muslims talk like this? And a leader? Our enemy doesn't need enemies. Our ummah doesn't need enemies. When we got the rags calling the rule of Allah a fantasy. The rule of Allah in the Quran is a fantasy. Application of Allah's laws in Muslim countries is a fantasy. For one who suckled Islam from the intelligence of the West, yes, it's a fantasy. The Quran I memorized, and every single tafsir I read and studied by ijma' says something way different from what those rugs, those ruwaybida say. Let him and his foolish audience go open any of the mothers of the tafsir and tell me what the mufassirin said about these ayat. ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاكَ على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون وما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم ومن يعص الله ورسوله فقد ضل ضلالا مبينا إنا أنزلنا إليك الكتاب بالحق لتحكم بين الناس بما أراك الله ولا تكن للخائنين خصيما إن الحكم إلا لله يقص الحق وهو خير الفاصلين ما لهم من دونه من ولي ولا يشرك في حكمه أحدا. In tens more of ayat in a hadith. That's a fantasy. The Ruwaybida, they think the hudud, they're fools. They think the hudud are all that it is in Islam. Like cut in the hand or zina punishment. That's part of the Sharia of Allah. But they make it like that's the only thing. The Ruwaybida don't know that's a small portion, a small percentage of the rule of Allah. Islam has an entire economic system to be proud of. That must be established in our lands. If they wanna succeed in every aspect, it has laws and rules. Muhyiddin al-Qurra, contemporary man, wrote a contemporary book on the laws, Islamic laws of debt and laws of stocks and bonds and investments and many other matters and details pertaining to Islam's economic. It's not just about, that's part of it. It's not just about cutting the hand and hudud and ridda. Contemporary books that talk in depth and detail about Islam's Islamic economic laws, Al-Dabbu wrote about it. Abu al-A'la al-Mawdudi wrote about it. Al-Ayadi wrote about it. Al-Badawi, Ismail ibn Ibrahim al-Badawi wrote about it. And tens others wrote about the Islamic laws in Sharia and finance. It's not just about cutting the hand and the ridda that they have an issue with. It's an entire way of life. Islam has labor law. You know what's funny? Is sometimes there's Islamic laws, some of them are broad and encompass the discretion of a Khalifa or whoever he appoints, and sometimes they may be like non-Muslim laws. The Ruwaybida would be willing to praise and glorify it as laws of Islam, but not because it's laws of Islam, because it's laws of others. No pride. No pride. After I finished Medina, I returned here and got a master's degree in law. It's called the LLM. Specifically, actually, when you go in a master's degree in law, you got to choose an area. Mine was in labor law. My thesis was on aspects of labor law in Islam. The professor became interested in Islam. He used to sit me for hours and hours asking questions about Islam. This was before the internet era where they could look up stuff and check about Islam. It wasn't widespread back then. I remember one time he said, those references you've been using in this thesis, how old are they? I said, well, the verses I used and the hadith that I used, they're about 14 centuries old. They were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ 14 centuries ago. But the rest of the books were approximately 400 years ago, 700 years ago. I believe the most recent one was maybe 400 years ago. We went on talking for months and months. He told me at one time, I'm surprised such in-depth details of laws haven't dominated the world. And all I thought, it was just a small thesis on a few issues of labor law. That's a non-Muslim, but the Ruwaybidah undermined the Islamic law legislated by